From 1878 to 1968, there were 71 lake captains that called Bayview, Wisconsin, on the shore of Lake Michigan, their home. While they lived here, they captained 195 different ships, from tugboats to schooners to steamships, in voyages that took them to every one of the Great Lakes. Join us now for another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we explore not only these captains, but also their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes.
Hello again, everybody. I'm sitting in a different location here in my backyard in Bayview. Get some new flowers for you. Don't ask me to tell you what they are, I don't know, but I do know that the bees and hummingbirds come around and the butterflies, so it's nice. And they're in bloom, and I thought I'd showcase them for you. I'm in the recovery mode post historic marker, a Wisconsin historic marker here at the Johanna Brotch house. As some of you may know that have been watching the channel, that event was the dedication of the marker for Johanna Brotch, the original owner of the home, that lived here for 60 years, as Bayview's only female ship owner. That marker, that historic marker, was dedicated on Saturday. It's from the Wisconsin Historical Society. Only the third one in Bayview, the first one in 27 years in Bayview. Of the three, it's the only one for a house. And not only that, but in the state of Wisconsin, it's the only one for the house of a female ship owner or a female entrepreneur, which she was, because she ran the schooner as a business, schooners as a business, or even a Great Lakes ship captain's house. It's the first time any of those have a marker, and they're all here at this house in Bayview. First in the state, Bayview. Pretty good. I thought it would take just a moment to talk a little bit about what happened. It was absolutely great event. Everyone loved it. It was hot, but it was worth the wait. Everyone had a great time. When I'm done with this, I'm going to play in its entirety the video of the event for you. For those of you that might have missed it or might be living in another location, would like to see it. There's one little part in there which was where my camera malfunctioned, but fortunately Joanne, who's taking the pictures and is also my graphic designer for the pamphlet, I think I mentioned that before, her name's on there, but she just happened to see it when it went off and grabbed it, so we only lost about a minute, if that, of the videoing. So thank you, Joanne. Okay, I want to take this moment now before we move to the video to thank everybody. We had 3 generations of Draves family here. William Draves, the brother of Johanna, is the one that built the house and bought the schooners for her. And so 3 generations. Bill Draves IV, William A. Draves IV, was one of the speakers, and he did a great job educating us, and he is a professional educator, and so he talked about family and the importance of saving things. I'll let you see the video, but Bill did a great job. And then I had been focusing on Johanna but not so much John Brotch. Well, Jeff Harrington, who is the great grand nephew of Johanna Brotch and a musician, composed a song for us about Captain John Brotch, who I believe his ship sank in northern Lake Huron and he drowned, and he didn't come back in September of 1900. So Jeff brought us back around to say, hey, don't forget about Captain John Brotch, Johanna's husband. I forgot to mention Bill Draves, William A. Draves IV, is the great grandnephew of Johanna, and Jeff Harrington is the great nephew of Johanna. Okay. Then after Jeff played the music for us, Kira Henschel, past president of the Women Entrepreneurs Association, had some great figures about females in historically as entrepreneurs. Wonderful. Thank you, Kira. Very educational. And then after that, we moved into the Prussian costume singers. Pomerania is the area they were representing because that is where Johanna lived, along the Baltic Sea coast. And so they had some songs for us that were nautically based but native to Pomerania, and they were just wonderful. So thank you, George Radke, president, everyone else that came to sing. We really appreciate it, and it was tremendous. Then we went out and we unveiled the marker, came back. People took, after we unveiled the marker, people were able to take advantage of the first floor being open of the house and went through and looked at Johanna's home. And then it concluded, and that was it. So a very successful event. You'll see the video in a minute. At the end, I'll show you the pamphlet again. I did that last week, but just in case you want to know again about the speakers or anything else, I'll put that at the very end. And then I'll also come back after all that, and I will tell you where we're going, which is back to Bayview's Lake Captain. So stand by for that. Okay. I'm not going to do the hat yet because I'm not done. And so with that, I will turn you over now to watch the video. Our normal narrator, Simon Stanhope, is not going to be narrating this one. This is just watch as you go and see it on your own, listen on your own. So enjoy. It was a great time. We had about 80 people there, which is tremendous, and so great success, wonderful. And now you drive down East Lincoln Avenue, and there's a historic marker on the street with Bayview's the street that the most Bayview lake captains lived on in history, and also this part of Bayview is where the majority lived in Bayview. So we now have a marker so designating. Okay, I will turn you over to the video, enjoy it, and then I'll come back. Bayview's most prolific schooner captain. We have a lot of things to say here today, a lot of guest speakers. We have, I'll introduce them one by one. Just a couple of pieces of information. When I first bought this house for $35,000 in 1993, I was promptly told by the contractors that I wanted to restore it to the way it looked, to tear it down, and we'll build you one just like it. And so fortunately, I was a big fan of Bob Vila, for you old folks that remember him on PBS, and I said, Bob would never tear this house down. So I stuck with it and I hung in there, and it's restored the way that it looked when it was built here in 1890. So I'm proud of that. A couple pieces of information about Johanna Brotch. She lived here for 60 years. She's the original resident. Not only, as I said, Bayview's only female ship owner, but when I researched the information, I discovered there were about 1,500 total ship owners in Milwaukee. Of that 1,500, only 75 were women, and of that 75, only 50 lived here. Some of them registered their ships here and lived elsewhere. So 50 women out of 1,500. And then Johanna, that lived here, captained 2 schooners at least, and they were financed, and this is where I'm going to lead into our first guest speaker. They were financed by her big brother. They immigrated from Prussia. I'll let him handle all of that. But he financed the schooners for her and did a lot of stuff for her, like building this house for her. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you the great-grandnephew of Johanna Brotch, and the great-grandson of William Draves, her big brother who built the house. So he is William A. Draves IV, and he's going to talk to you now about the tremendous history of their family. Over to you, Bill.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you, everybody, for being here to explore your history here in Bayview and our history, collective, our history. I want to do 3 thank yous, and then I would tell you 3 lessons that I have learned over the last 10 years working with Doug, who explored and researched all of this. First, I want to thank the Wisconsin Historical Society. When we were children, our parents stopped at every historical marker as we went around Wisconsin. I had breakfast with a guy who now pays his sons to stop at every historical marker. We didn't get paid, but it was a great experience, and thank you to them. I want to thank our family, our extended family, coast to coast. Other relatives who are here today are Nancy Shaneman, 4th generation, Jane Johnson, 4th generation, the talent, Jeff Harrington, 5th generation, Noah Johnson, 5th generation, and then James Gilbert, 6th generation. Our relatives, extended family, coast to coast, have been interested in this, and I'm particularly glad for the young people in our family and anywhere who are interested in the history. And then the last thank you is to Doug Mintline. This is all him. We knew nothing until he bought this house and started doing research. And he's done 4,000 pages of research over 10 years, I think, and I'm still learning more from him every day. So let's give Doug a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Lesson number 1, know and explore a little about your ancestors. For a couple of reasons. One is that our family is not unique. There are several things that are unique about our family, but everybody has somebody somewhere who has contributed to our history and to your lives. And it might be a paragraph, it might be a phrase, it might be a joke that someone said that resonates. But please take a little time and just one sheet of paper, summarize your ancestors for yourself, but then do it for your descendants, because the young people need to know about not only your ancestors, but also about your life and your times. And I will explain later why your times need to be documented. When Doug came to us, we had no idea. We were told growing up that William Draves, my great-grandfather, had Northwest Malleable Factory, an iron factory, and that he rented a room to some guy who then built this Fortune 500 company that is called Rex Nord today. And that was only 1% of it. And as Doug researched it, my great-grandfather created the first patent that made Rex Nord a Fortune 500 company, and that the second patent that made it the chain belt that it became was a woman, Nellie LaValle, the wife of the guy who's now credited with the founding of it. Only the 40th woman in the U.S. history to get a patent. And then it goes on and on from there. And so lesson number 1 is to research, but then pass on your history from today to your descendants. Lesson number 2 is that there were 400 other people out there at any point in time in history. We think of Steve Jobs as the guy who invented computers, but there were 400 other people who tried and failed, or tried and halfway succeeded, or tried and failed after a few years. And those people were equally important in creating our major innovations, society, technology, and everything that we benefit from. So a lot of us, William Draves was one of those 400. I mean, he obviously doesn't have a mansion on Wisconsin Avenue. He's not the Polish moon there, but he was one of those people who was instrumental for both his successes and his failures. He did have failures. Rex Nord was a one-hit wonder. He had everything else he did was a failure. He had a brewing company, Milwaukee Brewing Company. I say to audiences that it tasted so bad they had to rename it Bud Light. And he had an automobile factory. And the automobile, you know, if we, I wish we were all driving a Draves mobile and the steam that produced it, but no, we're not. He went into real estate and other things, of course, helping in the shipping industry as well. And my grandfather said when he was in high school, he said, "Father, all your inventions are driving us to the poorhouse." And he was right, except for that one, which, of course, made history. So lesson number 2 is there's a lot of other unique, interesting, fascinating people other than the big name that you read about in the history books. And the third lesson is that we are living in exciting, unique times. So William Draves and Johanna were also living in unique times. They were at the foreground of creating the industrial society of the 20th century and creating that life that Milwaukee and the US and the world experienced over the last century. Cars, suburbs, canned goods, electricity, gas stoves, and everything else. But they lived in the agrarian age. And so here, and in Williams' house, they would wake up and just the smells excite me. They had wood-burning stoves. They had whale lamps. They went out in the back and fed the horse, also the chickens, and the smell of leather and the smell of the hay and the smell of the smoked fireplace. And then they walked or got like 3 blocks, and they were in the industrial age. And William was in a foundry, and the smells were all different. They were the 20th century smells of iron and everything else that went along with it. And down at the docks, they were creating shipping all over the United States that they hadn't had before. And so just thinking about that time and just the smells really excite me. And they say that we will never know what it was like back then. And they also say that if we look at a Van Gogh painting, we don't have any idea what the French people experienced when they first saw a Van Gogh. We look at a Van Gogh and say, oh, that's a beautiful painting. They had an entirely different experience that I don't know. It was revolutionary, it was shocking, yeah. I have no idea, and we have no idea what they actually felt. And we have now gone through another enormous transformation in our lives. 25 years ago, we were in the industrial age of the last century. And then the World Wide Web, sometimes called the Internet, was invented by a British scientist working in Switzerland, and it changed everything about society. And over the last 20 years, we have moved from the industrial age into the knowledge society of the 21st century. And our descendants will have no idea what we felt down here when they said Y2K, when they said now you can go on Zoom and see somebody halfway across the world that you know, and everything else. Is AI going to take over the world? Yeah, that was on the radio yesterday. We have no idea, but we have feelings, and our descendants will have no idea how we felt, because that is a unique time. In no other time in history, before or after, are there going to be the first 20 years after the World Wide Web was invented. And so that's why we should document our lives for our descendants, because they will be as interested in your history as you are in the history of Bayview. And Johanna and William Draves and all the others, the 400 others that helped create Milwaukee as a great city. So thank you so much for being here and having this interest in our joint history. Thank you very much.
All right, next up we're going to have, that was the great grandnephew of Johanna Brotch, William Draves IV, that you just spoke, driving all the way from River Falls to be here today, by the way. And that's a great grandnephew. Who I'm about to introduce to you now is the great grandnephew of Johanna Brotch. And he's going to be singing a song that he's dedicating to Captain John Brotch, that was Johanna's husband. And he was not only Bayview's most prolific schooner captain, but also in 1900, he, by my calculations, I can't prove it, but everything points to it, walked out the front door of this house, captaining a three-masted schooner, got in a storm in Lake Huron. The ship ran on the rocks, and he drowned, leaving behind Johanna and her 6 children here. So Jeff, very astutely and wisely, as I'm talking about Johanna and William Draves, is saying, hey, let's not forget about Captain John Brotch. So without further ado, here is Jeff Harrington.
Thank you, Doug. It'll just take me 1 second here. And I'd like to thank Doug for all this work on Family House and congratulate him. It's really pretty extraordinary what he's done here. So Johanna's husband was a captain and died in a shipwreck, and I was thinking that must have been one of the bigger things that happened here. And it's kind of romantic in a very dark way, I guess, as well. I tried to write a song, but I found a Bob Dylan song that I thought worked better. I think he's a little bit better songwriter than I am. This is called Tomorrow is a Long Time, and I'm imagining John Brotch on his last voyage, and he's missing his wife, and maybe this song captures how he was feeling a little bit. If today was not a fated ship a-sailing, if tonight I could finally stand tall, if tomorrow wasn't such a long time, then lonesome would mean nothing to me at all. And only if my own true love was waiting, if I could hear her heart a-softly pounding, if only she was lying there beside me, then I'd lie in my bed once again. I can't see my reflection in the water, I can't speak the sound that knows no pain, I can't remember the footsteps or the sound of my own name. Yes, and only if my own true love was waiting, if I could hear her heart a-softly pounding, if only she was lying by me, then I'd lie in my bed once again. There's beauty in that silver singing sea. There's beauty in that sunrise in the sky. But none of these can match the beauty I remember in my true love's eyes. Yes, and only if my own true love was waiting, if I could hear her heart a softly pounding, if only she was lying there beside me, I would lay in my bed once again. Yes, only if my own true love was waiting, if I could hear her heart a softly pounding, if only she was lying there beside me, then I'd lie in my bed once again. Thank you.
Wonderful, Jeff. Thank you very much for that. We move on to our next speaker now, just as a way of introduction. Johanna Brotch owned the two schooners while she lived here. That means they were her business. Schooners back then were mom and pop businesses. And this is a great example of it. Her husband captained them, she owned them. That also meant that she was handling some of the daily business activities ashore, getting supplies lined up, place to dock when the ship came, all that sort of thing she took care of. And which means she was a female entrepreneur. Now, this marker is the first for any Bayview female ship owner. That's true, but I can tell you from having looked up every single one of the Wisconsin markers, there are none for female entrepreneurs. There are none for female ship owners, and there's none for I'm talking about for the houses. There are no markers at homes of Great Lakes ship captains. So this marker qualifies for all three of those categories right home here in little old Bayview. I'm going to introduce you to Kara Henschel now, who's going to talk to you. She's the past president of the Wisconsin chapter of the National Association of Women Business Owners, and she's going to give you a perspective on females as entrepreneurs in history. Kara?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All righty. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Doug. This is quite an event. It's really very cool. I have the privilege and honor of also being Doug's publisher. We're working on his series of 12 books about War and Peace. And you also have a YouTube channel, and that explains a lot of what people have been talking about today. So that's very cool. I started my first business in 1984. It was a long time ago now, and it was a translation agency. I lived in Austria and did a lot of technical translations. And then when I came back to the States, I continued doing translations from German into English. All sorts of things, steam engines and technical stuff, and then started the publishing company 25 years ago. And as most of you know, it kind of goes up and down and up and down. But I was very happy to be part of the women's workforce, let's put it that way, of being entrepreneurs, of coming up with, figuring stuff out. I think that's really what entrepreneurs need to do, is to just it might not sound like you're going in a good direction, but you keep trying something, right? Just like Bill was saying, but you try it and it fails, and try it again and it works, and you keep going like that. I brought some statistics about women entrepreneurs. These are from 2023. There's a bug. Anyway, in 1972, there were about 400,000 women-owned businesses, and now today there are about 12 million women-owned businesses in the United States, and worldwide it's even more. More and more women are getting into it, and I think also with COVID, a lot of people started their own businesses, and women are definitely moving toward the forefront that way. The average age of women who start up their own businesses are between 40 and 59. So I don't know how old you guys are, but you could always start a business. It's always fun. What I thought was also interesting is in many cases, just like we were talking about, with the Draves family and so on, you need experience and you need diligence, determination, commitment, and you need to know how to network, how to find out who can help me do this, or who do I know who can find a way to do this other thing. So in 2021, 31% of startups were women, which I thought was kind of interesting. That was also during the pandemic. And more women are getting into leadership positions, so leading companies or having influence on the board of directors and so on. So it's, I'm going to keep this sort of short, but yeah, so it's just, I love being an entrepreneur. I've also worked for great companies, but being able to be your own boss and responsible for what's going on in your life is really, I think it's a privilege and an honor, and it's a heck of a lot of fun, even though it can be really frustrating too sometimes. So I just, please look up Doug's books online. There's two, there's going to be a third one in July. Volumes, yes. There are two different books anyway. So it's been really a lot of fun working with Doug. I think you contacted me 10 years ago or so when I've got this book idea, and all right, well, and we kept each other in mind, I guess, right? Yeah. But this is a wonderful turnout. So thank you everybody for coming, and let's continue. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kira. Wonderful. Yeah, 2 books. There's an insert in the flyer. 1,200 pages. That's why I called them both War and Peace. But if you want to know about Bayview's Lake Captains, it's all there. 71 lived here. Most lived up and down Lincoln Avenue. No, the street with the most. Most lived up here in this area of all the lake captains. Now, this is the last step here, and I thought it was very important. Johanna and the Draves family immigrated in 1869 to come to America from Prussia. Now, if you say that real fast, they came to America from Prussia. The people would say, "You mean Russia?" No, I mean Prussia. Because most people don't realize that the Germany that we know of today was formed back in the 1870s out of 39 separate independent states, the largest of which was Prussia. And Johanna came to America at age 12 with her family, and they would all have recognized our wonderful costumed Prussian singers today, as you see off to the side. And they're dressed in the attire she would recognize, the songs she would recognize. And so it's important, I think, for Bayview to add another ethnic group to its very diverse history in the form of Prussia. So now hold on a second, I have to read this. Okay, now I'm going to do the best I can.
Now I'm going to introduce George Radke, who's the president of Pommersche Tanzdeel Freistadt. That's the best I can do. I'm sure they can do better. And without further ado, here are the Prussian singers that are going to sing us some songs.
And the men went up to find land for their community, and they lived in tents through the winter of 1839 and 1840, and some of them didn't make it. We'd like to continue with another song called Vode Osse Wellen. The language of the region was Low German or Plattdeutsch, and this song is in Low German about the beautiful Baltic Sea, or the Ostsee as they said in Pommern.
Kennt du Gott mit Sense dort leben in der langen Schild, hat wie alter Gegenwart mit heute füllt. All dort ist verschwunden, was mich kämpft und trägt, dort Glück gewinnen, dort die Sehnsucht bleibt. All dort ist verschwunden, was mich quält und trägt, dort Glück gewinnen, dort die Sehnsucht bleibt.
So the Draves came from the town of Stettin, which is a port on the Baltic Sea. It's now Poland. Stettin is the Polish name for the town. All the Pomeranians lost their homeland at the end of World War II and were refugees, and many came here to America after the war. But part of the culture was the lore of the sea, and there's what's called shanty choirs or shanty corps in like in towns like Hamburg and port cities and along the Baltic Sea. And we're going to do a little shanty song for you called Von Stralsund, sagt hey about a derelict tramp steamer going back and forth from the mainland out to the islands in the Baltic. And we're going to feature Mr. Craig Tews on the tuned beer bottles, a skill that he's acquired after 40 plus years of intensive study of Pomeranian culture. Most of our songs come from the 1800s. This one's a little bit more modern, from the 1920s. A song about the romance between a sailor and his ship and the sea and the sky, called Seemann, or the Sailor.
sind die Sterne über Rio und Shanghai, über Bali und Hawaii. Deine Liebe ist ein Schiff, deine Sehnsucht ist die Ferne. Unter ihnen bist du treu, ein Leben lang. Sind die Sterne über Rio und Shanghai, über Bali und Hawaii. Deine Liebe ist ein Schiff, deine Sehnsucht ist die Ferne. Unter ihnen bist du treu, ein Leben lang.
We will be at Milwaukee German Fest on the lakefront at the end of the month. They're also going to have a group, a Pomeranian group from Brazil, because if you said you wanted to emigrate to America, if the ship captain got a better deal, you might end up in South America instead of North America, and that's what happened to a lot of Pomeranians, and they're still down there in Brazil. Doug, you got anything else?
That's it. Yeah, well, our big moment's coming up.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you all for listening, and have a wonderful day. God bless.
Thank you, George, and our wonderful Pomeranian singers today. Now comes the big moment. Bill. He's over there. Bill, Kira, and Jeff. Come on with me. We're going to do the moment. Joe, can you grab is the video camera still working? Can you grab that? Joanne Hauk, she's taking the photos today, but she also designed this pamphlet. So if you're looking for a graphics designer, JoanneHaukDesign.com, it's on the brochure. Here we go. You stand here.
They're the garbage.
Jeff, you go over there next to Bill.
I don't. I feel like we should.
All right.
Come
Now,
in closer. Gotta be.
I thought we'd do this like a NASA blast off, but we'll start at 5, not 10, okay? So you all count in. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, the final item on the agenda is a tour of Johanna's house, the first floor, for those of you that might want to go through. Give us a moment. We've got to make sure you can get through here. Just a straight walk through, front to back. You'll see a lot of my toys in there. I've labeled them for interest. You might enjoy them. But it's...
So there it is. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again to everyone. And I mean it. Thank you to all. Okay, now back to the captains. I'll give you a little sneak preview of what's coming up next week. Next Thursday at 6. I will be doing a video on a Bayview Lake captain. Captain that is named James Sheehan. Captain Sheehan came to Bayview from New York. And while he was in New York, and I think this is really amazing. Oops, hold on. My flip-flops came off. Sorry. While he was in New York, he was a clipper ship captain. And he sailed around the world twice. That includes rounding Cape Horn, Cape of Good Hope, the whole 9 yards for those of you that are familiar with maritime history. Spectacular seagoing background on the world's oceans. Now, he comes to Bayview, however, sometime after that, and the video discusses it. I don't want to spoil it for you. And he becomes a fireboat captain for the city of Milwaukee. And there's a whole lot in between and parts of that are also interesting. So tune in a week from today. Captain Sheehan lived right over here, right around the corner, over on Mound Street, down at the end. Another captain from up in this northwest corner of Bayview, where the majority were from and lived. And of course, the majority, the street with the most captains on it, I should say, is right here on East Lincoln Avenue, or Lincoln Avenue, where the most captains lived of any street in Bayview. But Captain Sheehan's right around the corner down on Mound Street. There's other captains that live there too, so stay tuned for those as well. And with that, I will see you next week. Captain Sheehan, back to the lake captains we go. Remember, hats off to Bayview's lake captains. Bye-bye, and I will see you then.